I do.
Awesome. I see it now. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited that you are here tonight for Thriving in Business Careers Professional Panel on today's business world. So, my name is Michelle Morrison, and I'm the Senior Director of Student Engagement with Marshall Online. And as some of you know, we like to host these virtual sessions for students, primarily online students, but other students are welcome to join us, but really to give students a way to connect with professionals across campus. And you're lucky today to be joined with some professional, real business professionals. So even if I wasn't helping host this, I would be here tonight because this group, the panelists that we have put together, are impressive. So I would like to present our host, Otisha McGee, and who is a dear friend and colleague. Otisha McGee has been at the Career Education Center, I think almost 3 years, 2 years. So it feels like a long time.
I'm getting up there. I'm getting up there.
Okay, yeah. So she's tenured. She's very seasoned. Her role is in the Career Education Office, and she's the coordinator in virtual career development. So she helps host a lot of programs for us. And if you're ever in need of some expertise in career education advancement, she's your go-to person. So I'm going to turn this over to her, and she will be hosting the panel. I will be monitoring the chat though, but Letitia, take it. Feel free.
All right. Thank you for joining, everyone. I'm going to bring in definitely some energy tonight with our panelists. I'm very, very excited. So thank you for joining us this evening, this Tuesday evening. If you're wrapping up a long day, or if you're just trying to get a moment to reset, but you're ready for some honest career conversation, this is the place to be tonight. So tonight we're skipping the generic career advice because that's a lot of general things out there. So I essentially put this panel together to get some real life experience, some industry related things related to business, but most importantly, like no fluff, no filter, just straight, realistic advice, something good for your mindset, something good for your career that's authentic, that you probably wouldn't get this in any other setting. So that's the goal for tonight. And let's talk about who is going to bring us this filter-free information. So we've got Megan, which I'm going to let you all introduce yourself because I feel like people can talk about themselves a little bit better than I can. But this is kind of just the theme that I thought about you when I put this together. So Megan is the CEO of the Chamber. So I feel like Megan knows what business employers are looking for. She has an idea of what their needs are, and she has probably met some of those needs with the work that she does with the Chamber and beyond. So our next individual is David, our associate professor. And when I went creeping on his social media, I seen that he made AI feel approachable. And he has a host of other gifts and talents that he puts out there. Early on the call, he talked about himself being a busy brain. So it definitely works in his favor with his professional story online. And then last but not least, we have Raine. I've heard some great things about her from my coworker. She's creative. She's lived a life that we inspire to participate in. So I'm excited for her real world experience and how we can all learn from her as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Our goal tonight is for you to log off with at least 3 action steps that you can take this semester to feel comfortable about the steps you're going to take in this semester and also your career activities on beyond. So enough of me. And I'm going to kick off and do some housekeeping. So I want you to drop your questions in the chat at any time. And then we're going to choose some of those questions at the end. So if you got something in your mind, go ahead and spit it out there. Put it in the chat. Maybe write it down. There'll be some time later for some Q&A. And then most importantly, you're going to be taking away some things that's going to help your journey. So let's begin with our panelists before I get to rambling too much. So Megan, if you want to describe yourself in about 60 to 90 seconds, then it'll be David's turn, then it'll be Raine's turn. That's the structure that we're going to do tonight.
Sounds good. Well, hey guys, my name is Megan Archer, like Otisha said, and just a fun little fact, I actually know our wonderful moderator through our Chamber Ambassador program. She's really been a great advocate for our business community, so it's such a nice little full circle moment that she is now bringing us even closer to our students. So we love to see it. I've been in this role as president for over a year, which is really hard to believe. I, like you, started as a Marshall student. I went to Marshall as an undergrad. I graduated high school in '06, which means it's my 20-year high school reunion. It is very, very humbling. The gray hairs are starting. So that is wild. But yeah, just like you, I started as a student, graduated with my public relations degree in 2010, went to grad school for a couple years, and then came back to work at Marshall. I was there for 8 years, worked at the Department of Education in Charleston for a hot minute. I loved the job, loved the people, did not love that commute. And so I found my way back home to Huntington, where I worked at Marshall Health Network, which you're probably familiar with, and then found my home at the Chambers. So it's been a whirlwind for me the last 20 years or so, but it's moved quickly, and I know it's because of the preparation that I received at Marshall. So really excited to talk with you all here today.
Now, David.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Wiley. I am also a Marshall alum, just a couple of decades earlier than Megan, maybe.
You don't look it.
We won't talk about that. But so I'm from Barbersville, which is just up the road from Marshall. I was a music major as an undergrad and got partway through my program, got really interested in the internet. I'm so old that when I started at Marshall, the internet wasn't on campus yet. And it came to campus while I was on campus. And I just fell in love with everything about the internet. Anyway, okay, now I'm telling way too much detail. I am a professor of entrepreneurship and management information systems in the business school. Previously, I'd been professor of educational technology. That's what my PhD is actually in, like building tools, apps, software, things to help people learn faster, remember longer, stuff like that. And then right in the middle of my career, I took a 12, almost 13-year hiatus to run a startup company that a friend of mine and I founded that went from from being just the two of us to now it's a 50-person company that operates all over the country. So done a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Super in love with everything AI related, as Michelle was saying, and also have spent the biggest chunk of my academic career working on access and affordability to higher education.
Thank you, David. Now we are going to hear from Raine.
Hello, I'm Raine Klover. I'm the Executive Director of the Huntington Children's Museum. I am a West Virginian by choice. I've moved here 16 years ago with my husband, who is originally from Bluefield, West Virginia. We had met outside of West Virginia, moved around, and then he needed to come back home. So we did, and came to Huntington because he had gone to Marshall himself and had fond memories of Huntington. As has been mentioned, I have lived a life. I've lived in 6 states as an adult, add in a few more as a child. I've had a very circuitous career path. I ended up being a non-traditional student here in Huntington. I was able to return to school because of the cost of living. It was one of the factors that made us move here. So I went to Mount West, then WVU, and I ended at Marshall with my master's degree in public administration. So I'm really excited to talk to you, tell you some things maybe you shouldn't do, like don't follow my example, and maybe some things that you should.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to that myself. So everybody has introduced themselves. So now we're going to go back to Megan, and we're going to pick her knowledge a little bit. And we're going to talk about how she started her career journey. So right now, Megan, to prime your brain, I want you to be thinking about a career turning point. right? Thinking about their career turning point. So, what was that career turning point, and then what habit helped you grow?
So I would say it was the moment when I didn't get the job that I really, really wanted. And it was actually at Marshall. I had been working for Jenny Painter, who some of you on the call may recognize. She's the chief of staff for Brad Smith, but at that time she was the VP of marketing and communications at Marshall. And I was 28 and just full of hope and ambition and all the things that you are in your 20s. And I applied for the director of communications position at that time. I just thought, well, I've kind of been doing it. We'd had someone out with illness where I'd stepped in and, yada, yada. I just really went in there confident and, things happened and I did not get the job. But what I learned from that was because I still went for it and I had shown that eagerness, that willingness to step up and to show my ambition, to show my cards a little bit, the person who was hiring for the position said, although I don't think you're quite ready for the director's job, what if I create an assistant director's job for you? And this will allow you to still build that leadership potential. It's obviously not going to be what you wanted, but it's something that could still allow you to grow and thrive in this role here. Because I think she knew too, at that point, and I think Jenny would tell you, she didn't want to lose me yet. And so that was a way for her too to say, okay, I see her value. I want to show her that value. So for me, that was such a growing pain that I needed, but it also kind of shifted my perspective. And I think we've heard this before, quit asking college students, what do they want to be when they grow up? Quit asking young kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Ask them, what problem do you want to solve? And so for me, kind of shifting that perspective of my role, it's not just doing my job well, it is starting to see it as solving problems for other people. So whether that's just like being an amazing assistant to the director and, how I show up in meetings, how I build relationships, embracing opportunities that come my way. So I think just embracing that and being a problem solver. And I feel like there's a second part to that question, but that is where my brain is right now, Otisha. So
Oh, so the second one was like, what was one habit that helped you? So maybe think about, since based on your answer, what about how did she see your value? What habit did you have that someone saw your value that give you that position?
I think for me, it's always been a real intentional follow-up. Like I take notes, I circle back, I try to connect people when I can, when it makes sense. Just keep my word, right? Like we all want to be that person that keeps their word. And I really do try to live that as much as I try to encourage that, whether it's in my staff or even my husband, it's like,
Mhm.
you said you were going to do the laundry this time. So like, let's keep our word and
Yeah.
let's help me out here. But I think that the idea is that consistency builds trust, and trust is what is going to get you that momentum in your career, at least in my experience.
Yes, I agree. Thanks for sharing that. So this question is going to be framing around networking. So you're used to, looping back and making sure that, people stay connected or get to get connected to people. So I know this is sometimes a pain point for students when I'm working with them one-on-one with coaching is the topic of networking. So if you can give like a simple 60-minute intro for students to use, like at a community event, or if it's at the chamber, or if it's just in their classes, what would that be?
I guess I kept it more broad, like, because I know one thing that our businesses want is they want to connect with Marshall students. We hear that all the time. How do I get an intern? How do I connect someone who wants to shadow me? And always refer them to the Office of Career Ed, or Handshake, but it's like beyond that, I think if you tell people, hi, my name is this, I'm a blank major at Marshall, I graduate then, or, in a year or whenever, and telling them, I want to stay here. I want to make this better. I want to, and kind of allow them to see that impact that you want to make, and then ask them, what opportunities are you offering right now that might be a good fit for the impact I want to make here? And be bold. I guess that's my biggest advice, is just be bold.
Mhm.
I'm always so impressed when a student comes up and introduces themselves. Like, I just remember thinking, I don't think I was that student initially. So to see that in our students now, it's just really impressive. And I think, not waiting to graduation to start that networking is so important. And I know that's a question on here, is what could I do differently going back? I would have started networking a lot sooner. So
Yeah, I agree. And then just you pointing out, just to be bold, like you don't have to be confident to be bold, but
fake it till you
stepping
make it,
out,
baby.
yeah, stepping out and making those bold actions is going to help you with your confidence. So I understand
Yes,
that can be uncomfortable. So
for
we're going to
sure.
give Megan a break a little bit, and we're going to have a cross question. This is a question that anybody can answer, any of our panelists can answer. So that question is, so, so if you're thinking about a student, how can a student talk about their project work or volunteer work to employers for other people to see their value? Like, how can students talk about their projects, their part-time jobs, even volunteer experiences a little bit better?
I can start on that one. So you definitely need to have that elevator pitch. You want to have in your brain exactly the information that you want to communicate to anyone that you walk up to. Um, I love an elevator pitch. I love in 2 sentences knowing exactly who someone is, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. And it's something you have to work on. You have to like refine that. So have that elevator pitch in your back pocket. So when you're doing that networking, you have something to say, you have something to bring to the table immediately.
Yes, I agree. We talk a lot about elevator pitches over here. Yes.
I
Anyone
would add,
else?
I would just add to that and say, as someone who's recently been hiring, I I'm more likely to remember the impact, or you know why you did what you did and the impact of that, more than like the title that you held while you did it.
Mhm.
So I think focusing less on, not to say not what you did, but just more on why it mattered. I think that's always that storytelling component. Like, we have to be advocates for ourselves when you're going and applying for jobs and connecting with potential employers. So just kind of building on what Raine said there, those are all great tips.
And maybe I'll build on what Megan just said, which is, I think the best way to talk about it is first by talking about it. Like a lot of times you might feel like, oh, I don't want to come off as braggy, or, like I think like I'm all that when you don't know me and I'm a stranger. But if you don't tell us all the awesome things you've been doing, like it probably doesn't come through on your resume. There's like a line there and we read that, and don't that could contain a whole universe or just a thimbleful. Like, we don't really know what that line means, so you really do have to advocate for yourself. And even if it's uncomfortable, that means like really describing what you did and what was awesome about it, and also what was not awesome about it. Because another thing that we love is people who are able to learn when things go wrong, because stuff always goes wrong. It's never going to not go wrong. The real question is, how do you deal with it when it goes wrong? So lead with all the great things you did, but then be ready, because we're probably going to ask you, tell me about a time that it didn't work as well as you wanted it to, and what happened then, and have that answer ready too. And don't be bashful. Don't think, oh, if I tell about a time something went wrong, it's going to make me seem like, I'm not the person that they want for this job. It goes wrong for everybody. The question is, how much do you learn from it when it does?
Yes, because we are all human. We all have problems. We all fail. One public fail a day is my motto. So just one.
I like that.
So here is a transition. So great takeaways. Let's shift into tech learning, building skills with new technologies. If you can hit around who I'm about to ask some questions to, you can probably guess it's going to be you, David. So it's your turn. So if you want to step up to the podium, I want to ask you your first question, so you can bless us with this answer. So David, So you say you love AI. That's what I picked up on. So I'm going to ask you that question. So if you can give us 3 AI concepts or maybe even tips for every student, what do you think every student should know, and what free resource would you recommend for them to get started?
That's a
Mhm.
great question. I think the tip that I would give you is, for each of us, when we first start using AI, we think about it in terms of things that we already know. There's really not any other way to understand it except in terms of things that you already know. And let me give you an example. So at the turn of the last century, when automobiles were becoming a thing, people talked about it as being a horseless carriage because they'd never seen a car before. They didn't know what a car was. They knew carriages that you got in and horses pulled you around and you went places, but they didn't have a way to really talk about it. So when they saw cars, they'd say, oh, wow, that horseless carriage, this or that. And it took a while for them to be able to expand their imagination and start to understand that this new thing called an automobile had come into the world. I think AI is really super similar to that. Your inclination when you use AI will be to think about it like it's Google, but like Google on steroids. So you ask it a question and get an answer from it. But the real way that you want to be using AI is you want to use it uh, as a collaborator, as a think about jobs that you need to do, tasks that you have to accomplish, anything that you can sit down at the computer and do. You can actually delegate to AI and say, I need this done. Please go do this for me. And it will do it for you. And if you can change your frame for the way that you think about AI, instead of thinking about it like just Google, if you think about it as like an executive assistant or an
Mhm.
executive secretary or something like that, that or in at Marshall, we might say like a graduate assistant, somebody that you can collaborate with and talk to and hand tasks off to, and they can finish those tasks and bring them back to you. If you can think about AI that way, you'll be way ahead of 99% of people in the world who are still thinking about it as a way to just go ask a question and get an answer. Like they think about AI like a source of knowledge, but it's actually a set of capabilities that can really get real work done in the world. And so flip over and start thinking about it that way. That would be my top tip. No, Tisha, I know there was a second part of that question. What was the second part of it?
Oh, just a free resource to get started, like a free
Oh,
resource they can use.
I'm going to drop it in the chat here. Um, I love a fellow on YouTube called Matthew Berman, who I think has some just really great practical tips around using AI. Sometimes he talks about, well, he's always talking about AI. Sometimes he talks about what's happening with AI companies and who's hired who and how much money did they raise. And sometimes it's not very practical. But if you'll look at the titles of the videos, it'll be like, here are the 12 most powerful use cases for things that, ways that you should be using AI. And there'll even be a PDF that you can download that has, a bunch of supporting information in it. So I think he does a really nice job. And I probably watch his video. I mean, I've watched every single video he's posted for months now. He's my number two. My number one follow for AI is way more technical and probably doesn't isn't appropriate, but he's great. I love it.
Good, thank you. So here's another question. This is going to be more about portfolio. So what is the easiest way to showcase either maybe your AI skills or maybe even like, some business marketing tools that you may know, that you have been working on? What's the easiest way to kind of showcase that in a portfolio website or maybe even online on LinkedIn?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you don't have a LinkedIn, you 1000% need to get a LinkedIn. You should definitely be on LinkedIn. And then I think I would start that showcase either by just posting things on LinkedIn, posting links from my LinkedIn to the work that I had done, which you have to put it online somewhere to be able to link to it, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm also a huge believer in having, like, I love social media, I love LinkedIn, very useful. But I think it's great for every person to have their own website that they control and that they operate. And you're not, if LinkedIn decided to shut down tomorrow, would everything about you online disappear? Right? It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm going to drop another link in the chat here. That's a link to my personal website. It's one page. And it just has some bio about me and links to some things that I've done and some other information. But I think using LinkedIn is a great way to connect with people, but you have to have your things online to be able to share them online. So get your own website, get your own name.com or .org or something if you can, and just write a little bit about yourself there in a space that you control and that's not controlled by a company, out there somewhere.
Yes, that's some good information. Thanks for sharing those resources. I didn't expect those. You surprised me. Okay. So another question I want to talk to you about, and this is going to be related to business at its core. So how can you teach students about using design thinking to solve a real world problem and turn it into an interview story or something to talk about?
Well, the key I think, and you'll find that this is true no matter where you go, whether you're an entrepreneur or like whatever context you're working in, if you're doing what we would call knowledge work kind of broadly, finding the right question to ask is 90% of the game. If later, if you decide to go to grad school and like you're going to do a thesis or you're going to do a PhD dissertation, you're going to spend 90% of your time trying to decide what question is a useful, valuable question to ask. And once you get the question right, then like answering it actually turns out to be the super easy part. It's finding the right question that's so hard. And so the beginning of the design for delight process is trying to find a problem worth solving. And if you can't find a problem worth solving, then no matter what you do, nobody's going to use your solution. And I'll give you a quick example. So the company that my friend and I started, that I was at before I came to work at Marshall, creates online open source textbooks for college classes. So dramatically more affordable than what you'd typically pay $35. And so as I travel around, like I would get in an Uber and the Uber driver would say, tell me about you. Tell me about what you do. And I'd say, well, have you ever taken a college class? Yeah. Did you ever have to buy a textbook? And immediately he's like swearing a blue streak, talking about what a ripoff textbooks are and how expensive they are. And like with almost no prompting at all, just on a big tirade about it. Well, that's definitely a problem that needs solving because every single person you talk to about textbooks knows what a ripoff they are and how expensive they are. And like, so that's a problem worth solving. So coming back to your question of how do you present that and how do you talk about it is find a problem that's really worth solving. And then when you're talking to someone, whether it's in a formal interview or at a networking mixer or whatever it might be, they say, tell me what you work on. Don't tell them your job title. Don't tell them anything. Tell them the problem that you're trying to solve. And once you've done your homework and you found a problem that's really interesting and important, people will be interested in you and feel like, getting to know you is important because you're working on things that are interesting and important. So it's really worth investing from a design for delight perspective. The problem you're going to solve is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of that. If you pick a flimsy problem, the whole house is going to fall down at some point. So pick a good, meaningful problem that other people recognize as a problem, and always talk about the problem you're solving when people ask about the work you're doing. Don't talk about the specific way you're solving it. Start with saying, you ever buy a textbook when you're a college student? What did you think about the cost of that? And then let them talk for 5 minutes, their feelings about it. I think if you stay focused on the problem, you're going to do great every time.
Good, good, wonderful. So I love that. Let's keep moving. I think we're doing wonderful on time. We'll be getting some really rich answers, and there's probably a couple questions in the chat that we'll come back and revisit. So we see you, we hear you. So let's go on to Raine, and we want to ask Raine about if she'll step up to the mic, step up to the podium. Raine is in the nonprofit business industry, and sometimes this industry, I wouldn't say gets overlooked, but it's such a rich place to get different experiences, and I really want to make sure that we get that experience tonight. So I would like Raine to walk us through how you design a museum program from idea to a visitor's experience. It kind of reminds me of having a business idea and then figuring out what problem it is, doing the market research, and then actually getting to create and test that product. So I would like for you to present that to us with that in mind.
Sure. So, programming usually starts at the executive level. It's myself and our board president, Tasha Pelfrey, and we're identifying a problem or an opportunity. An example of a problem is that we have had low attendance on Wednesday mornings. And so we were looking for ways to increase attendance. So we listened to our guest, asked for ideas. Some of that is just one-on-one conversations. Some of that is more focused through email. So we put out the feelers, tried to think about something. We have to think about cost constantly as a nonprofit. We can't just drop thousands of dollars on a program and see if it works. So we then we had the problem of Wednesday mornings. We decided to do something called Wellness Wednesdays. And we started reaching out to possible partners to help us create this programming. The other thing with a nonprofit is we never have enough people. We started with I am the only full-time staff member still. We started with 3 part-time staff. We're now up to 7 part-time staff plus a museum educator. But still, staffing is an issue. We don't want to burden staff that are already doing things to then come up with this programming. So reaching out to partners. We found some wonderful partners in the Wild Ramps, the local foods grocery store, HIMG, and then a local yogi. And so we just created a schedule where each second Wednesday of the month is the Wild Ramp, third Wednesday of the month is HIMG, that sort of thing. Told them what we were looking for, bounced ideas between each other, came up with titles for everything and some ideas for the first few, and then put it out on social media, tested it out. We started off by saying it was a one-off to see if we had enough guest interest. We did, so we then implemented the monthly scheduling. We love collaboration. We have so many amazing partners. It's something that you have to do. I think you have to do it in life. I'm a very collaborative person, but I think especially in the nonprofit sector, it's all about your friends, your partners, who you can work with. And we have such a great network of folks here in this area. I think particularly in Appalachia, it's one of the things we're good at is connecting. So yeah, this is just a sidebar, but when we first opened, I was looking for some art activities. So I put out on my personal Facebook page, I'm like, hey, I'm looking for some yarn. Do I have any fiber friends that maybe aren't doing it anymore? Want to give me some yarn? I have yarn for the next century now.
Resourceful.
People were dropping things off. People then asked, well, do you need this kind of art supply? Do you need this also? So people are our greatest resource. partners are wonderful things to have, and to be able to reach out and just be like, hey, I have an idea. Does this sound fun to you?
Wonderful. Good. So now that kind of messes with my second question. So, Raine, so if you were to utilize or delegate, or even maybe even think about an entry level position,
Hmm.
what type of responsibilities would you give to that new hire or student to help with this experience?
For sure. I mean, part of being collaborative is working up and out, but also within. So I love to talk to new hires, interns, volunteers, find out what they're interested in, and then take those interests and direct them to something that we can build within the museum. Um, I have a board member who absolutely loves the Frog and Toad books. I
Mhm.
found that out and I'm like, hey, I think I want you to do a story time. Would you want to do that? And she's like, yes, I will bring you all the things about Frog and Toad. Excellent. Particularly with new hires and interns, though, it really is finding out what their strengths are and their interests are, and then seeing if they can create a program around that. I have a staff member, and I do this regularly. I check in. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Do you like what you're doing? Is there any ideas that you have that you'd like to bring in? And during one of those conversations, the staff member said, I'm really interested in fairy tales and fables, and I really think they could be something that we could use to teach kids. I mean, they are lessons. That's what they are, is moral lessons. So I'm like, sure. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want like story time? Do you want to create like a weekly programming? They're like, no, I want to create an event. So we are having FableCon in March. It is an evening paid event. Um, it's like those, Comic Con, Game
Mhm.
Cons. So we're going to have a costume contest. Kids are going to be able to come in with their costumes, walk the blue carpet. We're going to have a panel of judges. We're going to have some STEM activities wrapped around a few fairy tales. We're going to have a scavenger hunt that features one of our other staff members' art. So they are drawing all these different fairies from stories from around the world, and then we're going to hide them and you have to go find them throughout the museum. We're having story times. We're bringing in some local authors. We're creating this whole event because they had an idea, and they had a big idea. And I'm like, I love it. Let's
Mhm.
do it. I currently have a Marshall intern. And when we were through the Herd Work Humanities program,
Yes.
and when I was talking to students and then interviewing students, my number one question was, what is your passion? And then after they told me, would you want to bring that into the museum and break it down so that children could experience that? And I found a wonderful intern who was up for that challenge. And we now have, starting this Friday, a weekly program. It's called From Sunflowers to Snowflakes. And it is teaching kids about Russian and Ukrainian culture through fairy tales, also.
See?
So we're going to do some awesome stuff. I really think you have to find your staff, intern volunteers interest, and then nurture those and give them some free reign. There's oversight, but you have to, like, what are your ideas? If you could do anything, what would you do?
What would
Okay.
you do? Yeah.
And let's see what's actually possible within our budget, our time, our staffing
The
constraints.
realistic part. Yeah. I really like, so what I pull from that is I really like how it's important for students to know what your strengths are, what your interests, and how that translates to the workplace
Hmm.
or with your individual business. So it comes across more authentic. It comes across to an employer. You'll have more energy towards the project and you'll be more fulfilled. And that's one of the missions that we have is to turn your academic studies, your career, your interests into a career path that you'll actually like and love. Because yes, we need to make a living, but we want to be doing things that we ultimately enjoy.
For
So we'll
sure.
switch gears a little bit to make sure our brains are still moving and working. So here is a cross question for any of the panelists to answer. I have someone in mind because I know they're so great at public speaking. So I hope that she can put something out there for us. But one tip to improve your communication or public speaking skills as a student right now.
I
I
can go
will
on that
take.
one.
I was gonna say go Raine, because Raine's a
Okay.
great public speaker.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But the crazy thing is that I used to be the shyest human on this planet. Um, Public speaking was like death to me. Reading a paragraph in high school history made me like have a heart attack practically. Um, the thing is to just do it. When I went back to school, I went to Mount West, and they had a requirement that you had to take a public speaking class. And I was like, if I put it off, I'm never going to graduate. I'm just not going to do it. So I took it the first semester. It's the best thing I've ever done, and I had the best professor ever. And she talked us through it. She let me sweat and shake and still speak and just, like cry it out when I needed to. But she taught me really well how to prepare and just get up there and do it. And now I go on live TV. I just did a panel at Marshall last week. I'm doing this. I don't care. Like, you want me to talk? I'll talk. Um but it's really about preparation. It's about knowing whatever it is that you're going to talk about, which is why it's easy for me to talk about what I do because it's what I do. But yeah, you just really have to keep practicing, and you can practice by doing things like going to networking events, even joining clubs. The intern that I have is part of the history club because that's his major, and they have to do presentations in that club to each other. And I'm like, oh, that's great. They get to learn, they also get to practice public speaking. It's good stuff. You got to practice. There's no way around it. You got to practice.
I
I would
agree.
echo that for sure. And I would say this was a cool little tidbit. Last year, it was my first annual dinner. It's our 600 plus business leaders in the room. It's our biggest event of the year. And it was such a great timing for me. I had a meeting with Brad Smith before, and I'd mentioned, oh my gosh, I'm trying to embody your public speaking skills. Like, the man is just a savant when it comes to public speaking. And in that meeting, he kind of gave me 3 tips. And I don't know if he realized it in the moment, but I'm going to call it, I'm coining it, Brad's 3E approach, because these are the 3 things he told me that I needed to do in my speech. And true to form, it's an alliteration. And, in higher ed, they love a good acronym or model that you can remember. But this 3E approach, basically, Brad says you need to start with it's energize, educate, and empower. So you would start your public speaking with a story. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe it's something anecdotal. Maybe it's an interesting fact or a question. But whatever it is, you're going to breathe life into that room with your first few sentences. And you're going to hold that energy throughout the next 2. So at the second part, he says, you want to educate. This is like the core of your content. Whatever it is that your call to action is, whatever it is you want to convey, this is your opportunity to tout that and to educate them on your mission. Maybe you're trying to make a sales pitch. Maybe you're trying to get a sponsor. Maybe you're trying to get a job. So this is like your core content here on like who you are and why you would make for a good employee. And then finally, you want to empower them. He says, this is something that should leave them feeling motivated or just wanting to further engage with you. So, whether it is, maybe it is a call to action, maybe it's something, I'm thinking from an employer standpoint, maybe it's something to the effect of, I went ahead and proactively looked at your website and did a website audit. And so I wanted to share that with you. And if you have questions afterwards, please let me know. Or, I looked at your social media presence and I had a few recommendations just from, the lens of me, a student. I think I'm part of your target audience, and here's some recommendations I have. So something that leaves them wanting more a little bit. But public speaking, like Raine said, prep and practice, y'all. Brad will tell you, like, firsthand, he practices, he rehearses. It's not, although it looks eloquent and he is eloquent, he really works hard to portray that. And he would tell you the same thing. You've got to practice and you've got to rehearse. And that's what's great about your friends and your family. They're a captive audience. Make them listen to you as many times as it takes for it to just flow for you.
Thank
I have
you.
one more. Being confident. You're very rarely going to be speaking about something that you don't know and understand. So you're the expert in the room. Be the expert in the room. I always say that I can do just about anything. If someone tells me I'm in charge, I'm in charge. Okay, let's do it. Let's talk about it. So yeah, be confident. You are the expert in the room. They wouldn't be
And
asking you to speak if you weren't.
that's exactly it. And that's what I was going to say. If you're wondering, well, how do I become confident? Recognize that they asked you to speak. They asked you to present to them. That means you're important. That means that something you have to say is they want to hear it. So I think reframing that a little bit and giving yourself confidence and knowing, well, they've asked me to speak to them. They've asked me to interview for this job. They've asked me to present on my thesis. It's because it's valuable. And so own that a little bit. Get your confidence from that.
Mhm.
Very good. Very good. That is great. Great, great, great insight into public speaking. I know students could definitely glean from that. So let's speed things up a little bit. So who's ready for a rapid fire round? I am.
Ready.
For sure. So I have a few questions to ask you that you can only answer in 20 to 30 seconds. So that first thing that comes to your mind, this is the opportunity you get to blurt it out. Don't think about it. Just let it flow. So the first question is, what book, article, or channel should students check out?
I would say anything by Brene Brown. Dare to Lead, wonderful read about leadership, about emotional intelligence, anything with EQ.
Yes, EQ. We love EQ.
Do we all have to answer this one?
Was that your first? What you came up with in 30 seconds? We'll take it. So the next,
I'll say, if you are interested in entrepreneurship, because you said the first thing that came to mind, and I was talking about this book with another student earlier today, a book called The Lean Startup. I'll put it in the chat. Probably the single most approachable, best book on how to take your idea and go out into the world and change the world with it. So
I do have a wonderful book. I actually mentioned it in Leadership Huntington, and it is Unreasonable Hospitality. It's great for customer service, understanding your guests, your clients. Absolutely read it, love it. I've read it twice now, and I refer back to it often. Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yes. And I can see that definitely benefiting in the employee setting too. Yeah. No matter where you are, you have some type of customer, somebody that you're serving. Yeah, good stuff. All right. So a mistake you remember in the lesson.
That social media is forever. And I grew up, 2006, like I said, that was hotbed of early Facebook where we put every thought, every opinion, every party picture, God help me, on Facebook. And all I can say is thank God for the Facebook memories that pop up and remind me of how dumb I was 20 years ago. Because listen, your digital footprint is forever. And I know you guys know this better than I did 20 years ago, but never underestimate the power of your online reputation, both for good and for evil. Like that is a perception of your professionalism. And please don't do what I did. Don't post it all for the world to see 20 years from now. It's not good.
I agree. Relate to that. So the best go ahead, David.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The best follow-up line after a conversation.
It's a good one. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Y'all take it.
So this is the honest truth. If it's a conversation that went reasonably well, and I feel like the person was interested in what I was talking to them about, my very next move is to ask them if they like milkshakes and to invite them for a milkshake. I'm not a coffee guy, but if we have a good 2 or 3 minute conversation standing there after the session or in the mixer or something else, then I'll say, we should get a milkshake sometime and talk more about this. And people respond to milkshakes, it turns out.
Mhm. It probably
Amazing
gets their
advice.
attention. Yeah.
I love that. I work in a children's museum, and quite often I'm talking to grown-ups that maybe don't have children in their lives, but are interested. We're having a good conversation. I always invite folks for a tour. Like any grown-up that walks through the door, I'll give them a tour. I have given a tour to the postman, to the UPS driver, to the plumber. Yeah, if they show interest, keep them coming back. Just like David mentioned, if it's a milkshake, if it's a tour, whatever, just give that opportunity to connect further.
Good. Yeah, because you know the conversations that need to continue, you know the relationships that need to go further than the conversation that you had. So thank you all. That is all my rapid questions. Now, this is the opportunity for you to ask questions as a student. We'll look at the chat and give you some opportunities to get your questions answered. And feel free, if you want to come off mute, you can do that as well, or you can type your question in. But the first question I see, what kind of tasks do you, Professor Wiley, delegate to AI?
Mm.
I'm trying to get better at this. So currently I will, anytime I need to go find some piece of information, I think it's going to take me more than 30 seconds to find it. I just tell AI to go find it for me. So I'm giving a talk at a conference in a couple of weeks, and I needed a flight and a hotel and a rental car. And I told it, I'm going here on these days. I only fly Delta. Go, propose some flights and what Marriott branded hotel is closest to the venue, and some things like that. And it just went out and found it for me. I also delegate writing software to it. AI is really good at writing software. And so when you need a little tool like you're, so maybe in a class, maybe you're in economics and you're talking about supply and demand and equilibrium, and you're like, I don't understand how these things all relate to each other. You can say to AI, hey, write me a piece of software where I can explore supply and demand and understand it better. And it'll pop up with a graph and have some sliders, and you can drag the supply around and watch how it changes relative to demand and where the equilibrium moves. Like, you can just say, make me a piece of software to help me learn this better, and give it 2 or 3 minutes and it will do it for you. Or I have given my AI read-only access to my email. And so I have it read my email every night and look for certain kinds of emails that I want to make sure that I don't miss. Like invitations to speak, for example, and so I also have it do a daily briefing for me. So every morning I wake up and it tells me what it found in my email, what events are on my calendar, what things from my to-do list are due today, and which of them I might try to do given the empty spots in my calendar. Like it'll say, I think you could get these 2 or 3 things done if you time blocked them here and here. So it's a lot of assistant kind of work, like I was suggesting before.
Yeah, I love that, especially as a student, thinking about all the different deadlines that you have. Definitely having it to look at your email, your calendar, and helping you to prioritize.
Yeah, if I was a student, I'd want some way to get it into Blackboard so that it could read all the calendars, all the assignments across all my different things and tell me, hey, David, you've got this 200-point assignment due Friday and it's Wednesday. Have you even started yet? Because you probably haven't, because I know you, right? Like
Yeah.
some kind of follow-up like that would be super powerful, but I don't know that that's even possible to do.
Any other questions? Okay. So, how would any of you recommend emphasizing transferable skills on a resume without being full of baloney? Without it being full of baloney. So just relevant, sharp information, transferable skills, those character building jobs, I assume. Like, how am I going to translate it on my resume if it's not necessarily major related?
I think that's where a
That's
cover
pretty
letter is so important. You've definitely gotta do that cover letter. Even if they don't ask for one, give one. Tell that story in that cover letter. And as someone who hires apparently this year quite often, I read those honestly more. I pay more attention to that than I do even the resume. Obviously, I want to check boxes on the resume, but I'm looking at your cover letter more personally.
Yeah. And
Amen
if
to
you
that.
need,
It's
go
really
ahead.
about the story, about the person. Um, I have a very circuitous career path, um, starting with fast food management, and then bookkeeping and accounting, and then air freight operations, and then graphic design, and then cultural retail, including owning an art gallery, and now being the executive director of a children's museum. And I can tell you the through line through each of those and how I've like the skills that I accumulated back in fast food management still serve me today.
That's why you're awesome, Raine. I love your story. I love
Yeah,
it.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing too. You might think, so somebody posts a job and it says, we need this kind of person. You send your resume and say, well, it's right there in black and white. There are all the things I do that are related to that job application, but it's not at all clear to the person who's reviewing it. We need you to take us on a guided tour and explain to us, here's this point of my resume and that point, and here's why it matters. Here's how it relates to the job that you've posted. It might seem a little strange that I did this or that, but let me tell you why it's an exact fit for what you need. It's like
Mhm.
we need that interpretive work. As an employer and as somebody who has also hired a bunch of people, I'm looking at a bunch of resumes. I don't have time to dig into your resume and try to mine out all the like valuable ore in your like. I need you to just tell me, give me a map, tell me where it is, what it means. That cover letter is a big deal.
And that's where AI can help too. I will say, please
Mhm.
don't do the copy and paste AI from Chat GPT, but
Mhm.
type in the highlights and feed that into AI and say, how do I make this stand out? Or how do I catch the attention of an employer with these talking points? And how do I tell my story? And then please fine tune that. Don't just again copy and paste it. Take out those long dashes because that's going to be, if there's a rocket ship emoji in your cover letter, that is a dead giveaway that you use ChatGPT. I am on to you. So,
We know.
but yeah, I think in general, the fact that you've joined a panel like this is the first step in the right direction, just to being open to how you can become a better employee when the time comes.
Yes, those were amazing questions. Definitely follow up with Megan, David, Raine. If you have any further questions, I'm sure that they will be glad to connect with you on LinkedIn. They have served us well tonight in giving us some valuable information. So now I want to leave you with this. Pick one thing from tonight to start this week. Usually when we come into an educational space and we get poured into, you need to take action on it within the first 72 hours to maximize your results. So put it on your calendar, take that first step, and plan out something that you can take action on today and be encouraged as you're doing it. So again, I'm Otija. Reach out at any time. I want to thank our wonderful panelists tonight and everyone that has joined and spent their evening with us and stuck with us. We have the same amount of people that joined that are still here. So that says a lot about how much you care about your professional development. So I'm proud of you. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Thank
Yes,
Yeah,
you.
this is
that's
really
the end
fun.
of our time. Bye.
You sure you want to stop that recording?